Welcome to another episode of Timeless Business and Building Strategies. Today we have Paige Arnoff Fenn with us. Paige, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tony, for having me.
Paige is the owner operator of Mavens and Moguls, which is a global branding and digital marketing firm. Uh, Paige, you're the founder and CEO. Could you tell us real quickly a little bit of background on you, how long you've been in business, what got you into this?
So I hung out the shingle, let's see, going on 25 years ago, which is hard to believe. And I came to owning my own business accidentally. I joke I'm the accidental entrepreneur. I was not looking to start a company. If you had met me when I was in college or grad school, this would not have been on my dance card. I graduated from college in the 80s, and Michael Douglas had just won the Oscar for the first Wall Street movie. I saw it my senior year in college, and I just loved it and thought, that looks really fun. And I joined an investment bank as a financial analyst, thinking that was going to be my career path. And I realized a couple weeks into my new job that what makes for a great movie does not necessarily make for a great career. But I'd made a 2-year commitment, so I stuck to my commitment and realized that I needed to find a different path. So I went back to business school and completely rebranded myself from a finance person to a marketing person. I took my first marketing class, my first semester in grad school, got the top grade, got a summer internship in marketing, and I've been doing marketing ever since. So my marketing career's had 3 chapters. I started at Procter Gamble, one of the biggest, most celebrated marketing companies in the world. They invented the concept of brand management. And so I worked in marketing at Procter Gamble and Coca-Cola. Coke's probably the most famous brand in the world. Big budgets, big brands that everybody's heard of. And I learned a lot, all the basics. Then my next chapter is I joined 3 different startups as the head of marketing. So that was a completely different challenge because no one had ever heard of any of these companies. And they all raised a lot of money and they all had good exits. So I call those my 3 base hits because I made a little money 3 times, a lot of fun. And then 9/11 happened and all the marketing jobs got canceled because people were worried about the economy and being able to raise money. And that's when I hung out the shingle to start helping companies independently. So I took baby steps from big company marketing to small company marketing to doing it for my own clients. And I've been doing it ever since.
And what is your niche? Where do you thrive or where do you focus on?
So I feel like we're basically a virtual marketing department for companies and organizations that need access to great marketing talent, but they only need it kind of on a outsourced basis. So they can't really justify the overhead and the expense of having a full-blown marketing team or staff. So they use us as like, a bench when they need to tap into good marketing. So we do anything a marketing department, ad agency, PR agency, or market research shop does independently. I feel like the areas where we get called on more than anything else, it's like, you know, market research, strategy, and branding. Those are kind of our sweet spot. Most of the time, when somebody picks up the phone or drops me an email and says, I need your help, those are the things that usually get people to act. Like, they need a new website, they need a new tagline, a logo, they need marketing materials, they've got a trade show coming up, they have a new product they're about to launch, and they need help. They need arms and legs and experience to help them get to that next level.
And and when you're getting a client, how long is your normal life cycle with that client?
So it kind of depends. We work on both a project basis and a retainer basis. So a project may be, I've got a new company and I need a website so that we can launch our business. So a website, it depends. It can be very simple. It could be like a WordPress kind of, template. It could be an e-commerce website. It could be multilingual. Maybe they need it to operate globally and they want it in a lot of different languages. So the more complex the website, the longer it's going to take. So, we can be pretty flexible. Sometimes we are the marketing department and sometimes they have a skeletal crew in-house that just needs extra expertise. So we're pretty flexible when it comes to, if they are launching something in 6 months and they need work over the next 6 months, we can do that. But if we're doing like PR for a business, they're probably going to use us for 6 months or 12 months to put together an ongoing campaign. So in that case, that's more of a retainer business. But if they need market research, if they need us to analyze data, that might only be a 3 or 4 month engagement. So
Mhm.
we're happy to work um, any way that makes the most sense for the client. We can be pretty flexible.
I see. So, as you've gone through this 25-year experience, because you're talking about, from basically getting a brand off the ground to PR work to updating websites or a new niche rollout of an existing company. Have you have you found one to be where you guys really hit stride the best and where you get the most referrals and repeat clients?
So I have a funny story. So early on in my business, I had never started a business before, and I had never been kind of the CEO of any company before. So when I hung out my shingle, I did a lot of networking to meet people. I gave a lot of talks, a lot of presentations. And I joined a lot of networking groups. And there was a group here in the Boston area where I'm based of a lot of professional senior women, and they either ran companies, ran divisions at companies, maybe they were a partner at a law firm. Um, and so it was like a professional women's networking group, and there were hundreds of members.
Mhm.
And so I was very active in networking, and I met this woman CEO. She had a, a B2B service business,
Mhm.
and we were introduced to each other at a networking event. And she said, I think I'm going to need some marketing. Can you come out to the suburbs and I want to show you my business and see if you can help? So I said, sure. We had a great meeting. I sent her a proposal and she needed a lot of help. And I followed up about a week later. I didn't hear anything back. She never acknowledged the email with the proposal. I left her a voicemail. I followed up on email. Nothing. Radio silence, crickets.
Right.
So about a week later, the women's group was meeting for an event, and this prospect of mine was the keynote speaker at the event. And I thought, oh my goodness, well, I know if I show up, she's going to be there, but I don't want her to think I'm stalking her. Like, you
Right.
don't really know the line between being pleasantly persistent and feeling like, you're stalking this person. But I
Right.
thought, you know what? I'm going to go to the event anyway. I'll bump into her. And if she ignores me, I guess we didn't get the business, I'll just roll the dice. So I go to the event. I see her across the room, but because she's the keynote speaker, everybody's talking to her. So, I kind of nod my head from across the room, letting her know I see her. And I just keep networking. And then they call the meeting to order, and she gets up on the stage and she gives this talk that she had prepared. And for this audience of all professional women leaders, she said, "Today I want to talk about the importance of supporting other great women owned businesses. This needs to be a priority. We need to all support each other." And she just went on and on about how important it is that we have each other's backs. And
Mhm.
in anything that you need for your business, there's probably a great woman-owned business. And then she announces, apropos of nothing, that because of her firm belief in this, she is proud to announce that she is hiring my firm to handle all of her marketing and all of her PR for the next year. And that she had met me at this organization. She was very impressed. I wrote an amazing proposal. I really heard her and listened to her. And I mean, I was in shock
Wow.
because I had no idea that she even acknowledged that she had
Right,
read it
right.
or
You
received it.
didn't even know she opened the email.
And she didn't get back to me on any of my messages. And when I tell you, Tony, I mean, when she came down off that stage, I felt like a rock star at a concert. Like
I
everybody
bet.
was patting me on the back and coming over to shake my hand and give me a hug. And they said, "Oh my God, if this woman hired you, she is tough as nails." And I mean, she must have talked to every firm in the city. And I'll tell you, if you're good enough for her, you're good enough for me. I need to get
Right.
on. And I felt like I couldn't have taken an ad out in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times and done better than that testimonial. And
Wow.
I'll tell you, the month that followed that meeting, I got more business and it was early on in my company, and that really put us on the map. I
Wow.
mean, I was absolutely blown away with the power of an authentic referral of
Hmm.
somebody who,
An
has a
established
reputation.
person with a great reputation, and especially a hard-hitting reputation like you just mentioned. That that is critical. And then for growing a business, obviously, a referral network is one of the strongest networks you can ever build, and that is how you get that's how you grow a business and establish sustainability. So that's fantastic. So tell me a bit more because I love this story that you've started. So did you go through the whole year with this client, and did it end at the year, or did it extend on beyond that year?
So the proposal was for, um, I don't even think it was a full year. She needed kind of a brand refresh. She was in a
Hmm.
very competitive industry, and she did not have a rock solid brand. Like it was a little muddy in terms of what her differentiation was versus the competition. And so we really had to dig in, do some research, and figure out what was her special sauce. How did she do better than the competitors in her category?
Hmm.
What was unique, special, and different? What was the real estate that she owned that made it so that if her customers had a problem that she could help them solve, that they thought of her before anybody else. So we did a lot of, market research to get her story straight and to find the right words and pictures to tell a unique brand story. Once we did that, we needed to get it incorporated into everything that she did on her website, in her marketing materials. And she had not done any kind of real work on her brand um, since she started the company, more than a
Hmm.
decade before. So we did a bit of a refresh of her logo and her tagline. So when people went to her website, it looked more current and modern. It didn't look like some dusty old brand with no personality.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helped a lot. And then once we got all those ducks in a row, we handled all of her PR. And when you have a great story to tell, my bias is PR is the most cost efficient thing you can do to get your story out there. So, what are the media outlets, online and offline, where we can tell your story? Do you want to be quoted in the press? Uh, do you want to start writing a blog? Do you want to start an email newsletter? What are the things, do you want to speak at events? Um, do you have partners or affiliates you can work with that, you're both targeting a similar target audience, but you're selling them very different things. But there's power in your network because they may have an email list, they may be active on social media, they may have a newsletter. You could write an article for them, they could write an article for you. What are the trade magazines? What are the conferences that your audience is paying attention to? So we really did a very targeted effort to surround their audience. And it wasn't, it wasn't just a single audience that you're talking about. It rarely is. There's a primary, secondary, tertiary audience. The end
Right.
buyer, the person who makes the buying decision can be influenced by a lot of people. They get influenced potentially by the finance people or the procurement people in their company. So they want a story about the return on the investment. But the person who's buying it might just want things, to support a new product launch or to support an initiative like a new campaign. The media can be very influential. So, you want the people that are writing the articles or putting together the panels for um, activities for conferences and trade shows. You want them to think of your brand as a leader in the category or industry. So what are the things that you need to do to get in front of those people so that you can be an influencer and a voice in your industry or category? So there are just a lot of levers you can play with and see which ones have the highest impact. But it's not always the ones who spend the most money who get the
Mm-hmm.
most notice. Um, you can leverage online marketing and social media and do things in a very scrappy way. You could, put a campaign together on TikTok if you have a visual story to tell. And that can be very compelling and it could go viral for a great reason if you know what you're doing.
Absolutely. So, Paige, being in this industry for 25 years, right? So, if we go back, around 9/11, when we're talking 2001, right? And you're getting off the ground, this is a completely different world and environment,
Oh my
technologically
goodness,
speaking, right? So,
absolutely.
I'm interested to know, how have you adapted this business to all of this change to where we are now? And then how are you adapting? Because now it's adapting to AI, which is just a brand new thing, right?
Absolutely.
So how has that gone through? Could you go through that a little bit?
So when I started this business, yeah, there was no Facebook or Twitter X, AI, there was no COVID. Like it was a completely different world. Having said that, the core basic tenets of marketing never go out of style.
I,
Um,
I
you
love
know,
that.
at its basic foundation, you want to know, who your audience is, what's important to them, what is unique, special, and different about you? How are you solving their problem? What are those words and pictures that are going to be compelling to make people motivated to buy what it is you're selling? That has not changed. The tools and technologies change all the time. So, yeah, when I started my marketing career, they had network television, they had
Yeah.
print, they had radio, and they had outdoor advertising. Those were the media options that a brand could spend money on. Um, then you had the explosion of like cable TV. Then
Hmm.
it's like so
It's
it's
one thing. Yeah, it's one thing after it. So you've got to be very agile. So
absolutely. So
what?
you
So how do you um, when you're working with a client and doing an intake, so let's say if we were doing an intake, right? And so I'm an established business, not a huge business, right? An established business, but we're in high growth mode. Um, so I just went through a reiteration on branding and brand design in the last year and kind of getting that core message. But there's so many facets to this. So you can get the brand and that can speak to your company and get your image so they have the right understanding when they see your brand image, like what you're doing, right? Because you want to capture that quickly,
yeah,
right? Then beyond that, then we have to go to, all right, how do I get my strategic value across quickly, right? So,
yeah.
not,
So, when I started and you wanted to do market research to figure out what your audience, what they use, what they have now, what they need, what they are, trying to build for the future. When I started, you had to do focus groups or you had to do surveys. Kind of an old school way to do it. And it took a lot of time and a lot of money because, um, we're talking granular level data that you're trying to capture. With the internet exploding, you have things like SurveyMonkey, Zoomerang, and you could set up a survey and send a link on email. And that didn't cost very much money. And you could talk to a lot of people all over the country, all over the world. You didn't have to get a focus group together in the same room and talk to 10 people at a time. You could send the link to, thousands of people or,
yeah,
different age groups, different psychographics, different demographics. Um, and, when you used to do PR, that meant you had to do a press release, you had to pay to send it over the wire. Then you had to follow up doing desk tours. Um, PR in the old days, you had to hire a PR agency. And again, you would want to go to New York or go to different markets and meet different people. Um, Once social media took hold, it changed everything because now everyone walks around with the phone in their pocket and they're on a lot of different platforms and they have an
right,
audience. You don't know how many followers these people have, how many groups they belong to. So all of a sudden, everybody's got a megaphone now and you're not dependent. People don't send out press releases to announce things anymore. They
right,
can announce things with a few, clicks and then you hit send and it's done. Um, so, there's been a democratization, I think, of a lot of marketing. Now, there's a lot of noise out there, and there are a lot of people not doing it very well, but that's not stopping them from doing it. So if you want to do market research, I always say garbage in, garbage out. If you ask questions in a way that's leading the witness, so how much do you like my product? Tell me three things you love about my service. That's not going to give you a lot of real data. you have to talk to people who really are your target audience, who really do spend money on the thing that it is you're selling. I've had clients come to me and say, everybody says we love what you're doing, but no one's buying my stuff. What's the problem? I said, great. It sounds like you've done a lot of research. Can you share with me the data? And they said, well, it's not formal research, but I talked to a ton of people. I talked to my mom, my neighbor, my friend.
Right.
I'm like, that's not market research. These are people that are never going to tell you your baby's ugly. They don't want to
Right.
hurt your feelings. They love you and they support you, but they are not your audience. So if you're not able to, you can use Zoomerang and Survey Monkey, but you got to ask the right questions to the right people. Um, and, again, people say, well, I put everything on social media. I don't understand why people aren't paying attention. And I'm like, all right. So I look at what they've been putting on X and I look at what they're putting on Facebook. And it's like they're in line at Starbucks and they're complaining that it's taken too long to get their uh, venti
Right.
cappuccino, or they've put all their vacation photos on the beach on Facebook. And I'm like, well, if you're trying to get clients, they don't care that your washing machine is broken. They don't care
Right.
that you had a great time on the beach or you got burned, because the weather was so hot. That is not PR. You need to think about the messages that you're sending, because what people are going to do is they're going to block you or turn you off or ignore you because you're wasting their time. You have to think about the messages that you're putting out there, and you want to reinforce without being too self-promoting. You want to put stuff out there that educates people, that informs them, that entertains them. You want to share relevant stuff so that when they see your name pop up, they want to look and see what's going on. They're not trying to ignore you because they know it's irrelevant stuff. And when people realize that, they go, oh, okay, well, I thought I was good at marketing because I watch TV all the time and I read magazines and I know what good advertising is. Yeah, but
Right.
that's not putting together good advertising.
Yeah. I'm all about you have to entertain people. It's either you got to make them laugh, you got to draw interest because it's so flooded right now. You
Exactly.
have to do something that's going to sustain somebody's, over these years, right? So you can get sustained a lot easier back then. Right now you're flooded with so much. So you
You
have
got
to
it.
be able to grab somebody's attention and get 5 seconds. So it has to be a little bit different, edgy, funny, outside the box to otherwise there's so much content and thrown in anybody's face that nothing is different. It's all just blah, blah, blah. And everybody just regurgitates. Once somebody sees something, they regurgitate it 400 times. So you
Yeah,
see it over and
AI
over again.
and AI has made that worse, frankly. To be
Yeah,
honest, AI doesn't originate a lot of stuff, but what it does is it pulls from all the sea of sameness that's out there. And so in this day and age, with all the artificial intelligence tools, it's more important than ever that you really focus on your origin story. What is unique, special, and different about you? How do you stand out? You've got to share the stories, the good, the bad, the ugly. You got to be vulnerable. You got to share your humanity. Tell those stories where you got knocked down and you picked yourself up and what were the twists and turns. That's what people relate to. If all you're doing is showing, the fancy pictures that have been photoshopped and everything's great, that's what their eyes glaze over it. They don't
right.
believe it. They don't learn anything from it. It's not making them laugh or smile. That kind of stuff is just a waste of time. So if you want to stand out versus the robots, you've got to like peek behind the curtain and tell those stories that only humans can tell, because the robots can't compete with that.
The robots, that's true. That's amazing. That's fantastic. Paige, it has been a pleasure hearing about your story, and you've put a lot of great tidbits for people to consider with marketing. Now, if people wanted to connect with you to get a little more information or maybe seek you for help with their business, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
So you can go to my website. It's mavensandmoguls.com, mavensandmoguls.com. I'm on LinkedIn. My name is hyphenated, but on LinkedIn, it's all smushed together. And one of my clients always says, because my company name has an ampersand, my last name has a hyphen, she's like, they're just too many words. All I remember is Paige and Mavens. So if you Google that, thank goodness search engine optimization has my back. You will find me that way too.
Awesome. And we'll put everything in the show notes so people can connect with you. Paige, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it. It's been very informative on the marketing aspect. We appreciate everybody joining. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Tony. It's been fun.